everyone, it's Stephanie again, and you are tuned into the review of Married at First Sight, Season 15, Episode 14. All right, before we get started, don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be the first to find out when I post these videos. All right, let's jump into this week's review. So this week, they went on the couples retreat. Every season, they have a retreat where they put, or recent seasons, they have a retreat where they put the couples together. Sometimes they do exercises, sometimes they didn't. I will say that for me, this retreat was a really fun retreat. Not for all of them, but I really enjoyed this episode. And some of the other retreats, they weren't as fun. They weren't as fun, but I feel like this whole episode, there's a lot of really great content, and the retreat was fun. In terms of watching it and seeing them do different things. They usually do like group stuff, you know, they'll cook and have dinners or lunches together or breakfast, and then they'll pair off and do a date for each couple and kind of do their own thing. So it's a nice little hodgepodge, but I think that this is the best retreat I've seen. And I think it was because of the prom. The prom for me was so fun. It was just a really cute idea, and it was a great experience for them to do together, because I don't want to say who didn't love prom, but a lot of people love prom, and it was cute how they gave Lindy that experience. And yeah, it just was like a nice group event, and I think it added a lot to the night. So let's kick it off with, I'll kick it off with Kristen and Mitch. Y'all, I don't know what's going on. I really don't. Hold, please. Cheers to all my coffee drinkers out there. I don't know what's going on. This episode, first of all, we saw how it ended. We saw how it ended with Kristen going off. I didn't really see, we saw a snippet of a resolve in which he said that he didn't mean it that way, and it was, you know, essentially miscommunicated by her sister, and she started crying. And here's the thing, because I've seen a lot of the comments. It's not about Mitch wanting a woman who's more natural. Like, people can want what they want. It's how you're treating the person that you're with. And there has been this underlying theme from Mitch that she is not quite what he wants or what he hopes for. Or, hell, at the beginning he said he wasn't fully attracted to her. So we're not making these things up. It's hard to recover from that. And so when you have something that kind of leans in that direction again, it's not even so much what's being said, more how it is aligned with the initial thing that was kind of debilitating at the time, and how maybe that hasn't changed, and it plays on her insecurities, and who wants to be with someone who you don't feel good enough for. So I think that is kind of the problem, and I don't know that that's resolved. He seems like, you know, this episode like wrapped it up in a quick bow with that whole issue. But even that little snippet that we saw where they were in their apartment, I don't feel like there was much resolve there. And Kristen was very different this episode. And maybe Kristen was more of herself in terms of being more jokey and more out there and more communicative, and even the jokes with Mitch and kind of clowning him at the end. And I don't know, it's just, if this is more of who she is, I wish we would have seen more of that. But maybe she didn't feel secure enough to really present that way. Maybe she was kind of true Virgo fashion, because I'm a Virgo. Maybe she was presenting like in this way, and it's like there's this other side of you that's so goofy, so sarcastic, so funny, blah, blah, blah. But that's not usually the side that you walk in the door with. Virgos just tend to be more reserved until they're really comfortable. So maybe that's that. I enjoyed seeing more of her like regular self. I just felt like, wait, what have we been seeing this whole time? Although I do believe that other side of her is true as well. I just feel like a lot of it was not coming out. And so I don't know what this means for her relationship. I'm glad to hear that Mitch likes this side of her and they were having a good time. But once again, like, is everything put to bed? You know, I don't necessarily have high hopes for them. I never really have. I feel like they've overcome more than I thought they would, especially based on the beginning of this episode, beginning of the season. But I don't know, because I think that their worldviews are very different. And I don't think anybody should have to bend to anybody in terms of something that's so significant that shapes the way you live your life. So if she is not going to be enough, or if she has to feel chastised by the things that you think are right or wrong, that's not good. And she can't force him to do things differently or not feel a way about how he feels. So once again, somebody who has such a specific worldview and isn't as malleable probably shouldn't have been chosen for this experiment. Has he made progress? I think he has made progress in learning to get over himself, because he was really unrelenting at the beginning. And I think that he has learned a little bit to kind of relax a little bit and not be so my way or the highway. But I do feel like there's still a lot of my ways. They did this date, I believe it was archery. I kind of zoned out, to be honest. It was kind of boring to me. And once again, they were putting that issue to bed, and, she shot the arrow, and it was cute, but did that really, deal with this situation? Truly, did it really put it to bed? They said it did. I think the way that we'll know is if it comes up again and to see how they respond. But I did enjoy her poking fun at him and him laughing at it, and everybody having a good time and not taking it too seriously. Like, because that's what you do, who doesn't like joke around with their spouse and it's not a big deal, or this is what you sound like. And, I'm glad even the shirt thing was such a big deal, like he laughed at that. It was just enjoyable to see, not so much drama with them, but I don't know. I really don't know in terms of where they go. I think if they stay together, it will be to see if they can actually be together, like in real life, in real time. Because a couple of episodes ago, Mitch was saying, oh, it's not that much different, but there are some changes. So it's like they're living in this very curated space that is not reflective of their taste as a couple, or some of the stuff, the nuances that he does on a day-to-day basis that is part of his life. So is that stuff going to work? Will he be able to bend to her the way that she clearly has bended to him, and, is being flexible with him? So time will tell. That is Mitch and Kristen. All right, next we have Stasha and Nate. So Stasha and Nate, listen, you guys, like my mom comes and hangs out with us once a week, and she's now starting to come on Married at First Sight night. She gets all into it. I love that she just gets all into it and just talks back as if she's been watching the show the whole season. But interestingly enough, the episode she has watched is this soft porn version of Stasha and Nate. Every time they have this hypersexual episode, here's my mom sitting there on the couch, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm covering my eyes. Listen, it started with them going to an adult store and getting little toys, and listen, all that stuff is fun. I think Married at First Sight is really pushing the envelope on what they're showing on TV, because it's a lot. Like, it is a lot. And I think maybe that's their thing, because from the beginning with Stasha and Nate, they've always really show them in a very highly produced sexual way. And yes, they have good chemistry. They're not the first couple on the show to have good chemistry, though. But for some reason, we get all the shots of them doing here, there, and everywhere, everything that they could do. And although it's funny, and I think it's good as a couple. And I think even on the couples retreat, how they kind of, were trying to wake up Lindy and Miguel and give them a distraction and have fun. I think that that's fun, because here, we're all consenting adults. If you come in and you're like, guess what I bought, and blah, 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 like, that's great as long as everybody's into it and we're having fun and we're all adults and I'm with my spouse and, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go to the store and buy that too. I think that's great. I feel like it's just a lot on TV to show. It's a lot of simulation on TV to show. So it's just, what else happened with Stasha and Nate this week? I don't even remember. I just remember the vibrating panties, the sex swing. Clearly they're having a good time. Clearly they're enjoying each other. It's just a lot. The Stasha and Nate show, it is a lot. I I really truly don't know what stuck out between the two of them. But I still think that Stasha and Nate are pretty well matched. They have their quirks, they have their issues, but we've talked about that before in other episodes. I think they're doing pretty well. And they surprised me because I didn't know how this match was going to be. And Nate, to me, feels a lot more mature than he did at the beginning of the season. And they seem to really be enjoying each other. Kind of like, even when they walk in, it feels very united. It doesn't feel very disconnected. Which is a good thing, because they just have this couple's energy that feels calm. And sometimes with this show, we get drama when we have a week where a couple is just coasting, which usually is Lindy and Miguel. Then, sometimes we're like, oh, maybe something else is going on. But no, they seem to be in a good spot. If there's something that you remembered that I did not, please comment and let me know, because I really can't be on the sex stuff with Stasha and Nate. But still rooting for them. Next, we have Alexis and Justin. So Alexis and Justin finally had sex. Okay, round of applause. This is where I enter the round of applause. Here's the problem with that whole scenario. Clearly they had different experiences. And the way that we know they had different experiences is because when they were together, they talked about it in a way that seemed like nice, and we finally did it. And we're able to do this, to get more intimate, to kind of take the pressure off and be intimate. And then when she has a quick aside with the girls, she is being very politically correct about her experience, which, hello, we all know what you're saying. I mean, they're hearing what you're saying, even if you're not saying it, which is essentially, you did not enjoy the experience. The idea that, oh, if he's happy, then I'm happy. No, that does not work for everything. There are certain aspects of life where you don't give a damn enough. So it's like, yeah, if my spouse loves it, I like it. Or if they like it, I love it. Because I'm not hella invested in it. And so that's not a big deal that I'm not. Sex is not one of those things. So it frustrates me with Alexis because she, like I've been saying, she tends to be very inauthentic with what she says versus what she really feels. And she plays, I wish sometimes she would answer first so that Justin can answer, because Justin tailors his response to her, and her response is not always going to be what she actually truly feels when she's, I'm not mad, or even their dialogue with, the sex, when they're talking, she is kind of saying, at least that was my understanding of it, that they both enjoyed that and they were intimate. And I believe that based on what I was hearing, they were only intimate once so far. We don't know the time frame of this stuff, but it seemed like when they were sitting together or standing together and talking about it, that it was a good experience for the both of them. And Justin, when he the conversation goes a little sideways, when he says that, he still has stuff to think about and yada, yada, then she gets offended and I should be the only choice and I'm a self-assured woman. But then in the kitchen, so in that moment, she's basically kind of frustrated that he still has this apprehension or still feels away after they've been intimate. So in our minds, we would say, okay, well, she really connected in that experience and that brought him closer or brought them closer and she cares about that. But in the kitchen with the other women, it's throwing a little bit of shade. And really with your spouse, you have to be delicate with that stuff, because it is a very personal, intimate experience. And so to kind of just, beat around the bush with it and not really, demonstrate it in the most positive light, that's really telling. And you don't have to lie, but maybe just don't talk about it. Just say, we had a good, we did it and I'm going to keep my lips sealed because blah, blah, blah. Let's do that. But I just didn't like how she went about it. And I don't think that they're going to be together for the long haul, because I don't really think that they are matched well. I think that they are doing the best that they can given the situation. They really are the epitome of this. This is not necessarily what I wanted, but I'm I'm going to try and I'm going to stick it out, and I'm going to maybe enjoy the parts of the person that I really enjoy, because we've kind of known from the beginning that he was not necessarily her type. I think Justin would have connected to anybody who really, gave him attention or made him feel like he was enough. And they've been working through that, and they've been, finding things about each other that is great, and they've been enjoying themselves, and surprisingly enjoyable to watch when they're in a good space, even though I don't necessarily think that they are in it with each other for the long haul, and I think they know that. And I think Justin is really realizing, okay, well, maybe these things aren't for the long haul. The things that I can overlook in the first few weeks, or when they're in that honeymoon pink cloud, that's not going to work forever. So we shall see. We shall see. Alexis is really messy, which we know. Alexis is really messy. So that continues to be something that bothers me, because she just likes to poke the bear. Even, I forgot what part of the episode it was, but when they were sitting together and she said something like, "Oh, are you attracted to your wife now?" It's like, can we stop? We had a big blow up about it already. Like, let's not, I don't know who nominated her to be like that person, but you already kind of, I don't want to say ruined a marriage, because Morgan and Ben, that was ruined within their space, but you were a part of it. You never want to be a part of somebody else's demise, especially when it comes to their marriage and their relationship or family or whatever. And she found ways to get involved and validate that. So that's really unbecoming, and I think it's really petty, and I don't think that would work long term for Justin, who probably wants somebody a little more low key. But yeah, that's pretty much Justin and Alexis. I'm trying to think of them at the prom. I think everybody, for the most part, had a good time at the prom. Everybody looked great. It was fun to see. Before I jump to the last couple, I loved the superlatives. I love that. I wish they would actually do that every season, or an aspect of it. Maybe not the prom every time, because that was very specific to Lindy having not gone to a prom. But the superlatives was just really fun. And it was just funny to see them interact and not take things too seriously for the most part, and see who got what and who voted for who with that. I thought that was enjoyable, and it was new. I've never seen them do that on this show, so I thought it was like something new for us to see and experience with this series. So there's that. Last but not least, we have Lindy and Miguel. So Lindy and Miguel, they have been coasting for the most part. At the beginning, they had some ups and downs. For the most part, they have been coasting, but my God, they made up for lost time this episode. This episode was really hard to watch for them, because you ever see a couple that they're on this hamster wheel and they're just going around and around, and you want to help them get off, but you can't help them get off because they have to see it. And this is why I think it's really important to have the experts at the group retreat. Like, part of the group retreat, I'm so annoyed. Part of the group retreat should be like a session with the experts. You get your 1 hour and you go over there and you have a session with the experts. They would have needed it, giving them this space, the group this space, to hopefully use each other, which can be helpful sometimes. It's not enough, because in some ways, yes, they can commiserate or they can help each other because they are going through this experience. However, they're going through this experience just like the other person is. Therefore, they're not necessarily equipped with the tools. And so this would have been an excellent opportunity for the experts to pull pull Miguel aside, pull Lindy aside, help them both individually working on some of the things that they're struggling with, help them as a couple, because they were just on this roller coaster, and it got worse and worse and worse. Miguel was really frustrated. And okay, let's start here. Miguel came in real low energy, and he said that throughout the episode. Whatever happened at work that week, Miguel packed it in a duffel bag and brought it to the group retreat. And that's where he started wrong. Miguel came in like, and some of his stuff was valid in terms of the things that he was frustrated by. However, I don't think he handled it in an adult manner or a mature manner. I think he handled it like a toddler who is really upset and just needed a nap. Like my son this week, he lost it. And when I put him down, he went right to sleep. And then he was fine when he woke up. And somebody should have put Miguel down and gave him a nap. And I get it. They're filming, they're working full time. It's a very arduous schedule for this cast. It does not excuse kind of spending the entire weekend sulking and being pissed off and not communicating as effectively as you can to avoid being triggered all the time, especially when you can be triggered by the very same things when you're not as tired. So we see them go on an individual date where he's trying to share some poetry and some thoughts, and Lindy keeps interrupting. Lindy is the squirrel. She is here, there, everywhere, and she interrupted a bunch of times, and he was really frustrated and he shut down. So Lindy definitely is wrong for cutting him off. I feel like that whole series up until the time he snapped, that whole section up until the time he snapped, she cut him off like a billion times. And that was really annoying because like a couple of times I get it, you know, because you're on this ride and you're looking at things and stuff like that. But there's a balance. And I think they missed the balance of like being present in the moment and then also being tuned into each other. You know, if he's sharing something that he wrote about you or sharing something, I mean, this is a time, you're on a horse and carriage, right? This is the time to kind of zone in and listen and be present and show appreciation. It is not her responsibility to baby him because he's exhausted, but sometimes you kind of have to have more patience and grace for your spouse when they're struggling. And it could be when they're hungry, you know, when they're tired or angry, you know, our levels are different when we're in those spaces. And so she really needed to not be the squirrel focusing so much. And if you do it a couple of times, I get it. But at some point you have to be able to self-direct and say, okay, my apologies. Because her apologies were very like, oh, sorry. Like it didn't really show like she cared. And let me get focused. Let me focus on you. Or can you say it again? Because I was distracted by this, but I want to focus on you. It can't be that it's his responsibility to have all this patience for her because this is how I am and I can't change. She's working on it, but this is how I am and this is just what it is. The thing with Lindy is that she has like, for the most part, like a very sweet, excited disposition. And so you say, okay, well, that's just Lindy, or she's not trying to be mean, but you're an adult. You're an adult. You got to get it together. You have to be in charge of getting it together. So one of the things that concerns me about her is that I've heard the last few episodes, or really the whole season, there's certain things, and she's willing to work. She's willing to do it. She's willing to be, you know, malleable. But a lot of times she'll say, well, this is so very much ingrained in my personality, which when you listen to that from someone who's just meeting you and trying to see if this is going to work long terms, that's hard to hear, because then it means that it probably doesn't change. That statement doesn't sound like there's room for change, even though she says she will change, but it's like a recurring theme with her. And there is no, how will I change? How can you help me? A lot of people will say, I'm going to work on this. What does that mean? How are you going to work on that? Like, let's do these things so that I can help you work on it. If that means that when you do this, I'm going to help you, or can you help me by interrupting this so that I'm aware of it? Because sometimes, yes, if it's ingrained in your personality, you don't even know what's happening. So if somebody is constantly interrupting, over time, you'll be able to connect it yourself. You'll start to be able to pick up on it yourself, and then you'll start to be able to make those changes. But saying you want to work on it and then moving on and doing the same thing, and it's all in jest, and I didn't mean it that way, like that's not enough, because that doesn't bring about like long-term change. So I can see where he got frustrated, and I can even see shutting down at the very beginning, trying to collect yourself. But where Miguel goes really wrong is, and we can see why he's single, is how when he gets really upset, he gets nasty. He gets like very cold. He gets somewhat controlling in the sense of like the person who has that energy usually controls the room. They control the situation because they're not in a space where they can be moved, and therefore the other person has to relent to that unless they remove themselves. But even still, if they remove themselves, you're still controlling the fact that now I've removed myself from that space because you're not allowing me to be in that space. So I think it was really unnecessary, the way that he shut down, the way that he was cold, the way that he rejected her, because you have to look at this whole experience like this is marriage, right? So how many times have you been in a space with your spouse where you could have done those things, but for the sake of like just the human experience and knowing that you don't want to hurt that person, you make different choices. Is it going to happen every time? No. But did what happened warrant that type of response? In my opinion, absolutely not. I think that because he came in at a low, and we all know it, when you're sleep deprived or you're tired or you're stressed from work, your patience is at a zero. And I was glad to hear at the end of the episode that he really owned that, hey, I came in already this way and I've really made it a terrible time. Like, and yes, I could have responded differently and better ways to do this, but like, when you're upset or when you're tired, you only see the negative of things. You know, like you can't really see how it's going to work or what's a better way to do it or a great experience because you're wrapped up in the space that you're already in. He should have done something from the beginning, because even the picture thing, I thought that became obscene. I thought a lot of their experiences became obscene because it was now not about just the moment. It was about literally slamming every moment that this person has felt this way, and in this way, and in this sense, it's Miguel, and just like running her over with it. And it's okay to feel this way. Like he's okay feeling, hey, these are the things I have issues with, and these are the recurring themes. But the way in which you communicate that can make or break and can give room for progress or not. And he did not communicate it well. The picture, I'm not your photographer, I'm really tired, like, or you could ask, you know, that became really petty. And I think one of two things with Lindy, she apologized very quickly and wants to move on really quickly, which I think can be great in a marriage because you got to move on really quickly. If you think you're going to hang your hat on every issue that you have and make it a thing, you're not going to get through it. So you have to learn to communicate effectively and move on really quickly and be good and really move on. However, some of the things you can't just rush through because a person may feel like you're not really listening or you didn't understand what they're saying. And so when you rush through it, it almost feels dismissive. And I think Miguel was kind of feeling that way, but I feel like he had a point to prove with her. He couldn't let her try to even understand because he was so upset. And you know, he's very cerebral. He is very much in his head. And he was going on, and he didn't give her room to breathe. I at some point was like, man, if that were me, I'd be like, okay, you got it. There are times where you're having conversations where you need to take a pause. You need to say, we're not getting anywhere in this conversation, so we need to stop. Because you can't hear me. I can't hear you. You're not going to hear me. And right now, I'm not going to hear you. So we need to stop. But it wasn't enough. Like, I feel like he just was so pissed off in his own space with valid things and invalid things, because things that had to do with him are not valid to her and treating her that way. And so he just couldn't get off of it. And instead of saying, we're not getting anywhere in this, it was just constantly going in after her, which is probably reflective of how he has done things in the past, which is why he's been alone. Because nobody's going to sit there for that. You know, especially if somebody genuinely wants to move on or doesn't even, you know, isn't really aware of what they have going on at the time and they acknowledge it. Like, she's not really fighting with you. You won't let it up. The picture thing, I think, I'm not your photographer. Most husbands are their wife's photographer. Okay, my husband laughed out loud. Now I get it. You're entitled to be tired. Babe, just let me lay down and when I get up, I'll take the picture. I think that's perfectly fine because I feel the same way. Like, yeah, I'll take some pictures, but listen, we're not at a photo shoot. Like, let me live a little bit. Let me just rest. It's, you know, there is a timing. But to say I'm not your photographer, you absolutely are her photographer, okay? Every husband out here knows it, okay? All these great pictures we see of ourselves, our husbands probably took it, and that's fine. So to be kind of nasty like that, not getting it, and then to have such a response about it to where she's not comfortable even asking you, and she asked somebody else, and now you're pissed off about that, that really got under my skin, because I understand why she did that. And he's saying that she's gaslighting him or whatever the case may be, but he's not understanding that his disposition, which has been completely pissed off the entire time, his disposition has caused her to be apprehensive about asking him. Well, that's not what I meant. You should have known what I meant. Or you should ask me, hey, is this a good time for a picture? What? We don't have time for all of that. Like, you're my husband. Is this a good time for a picture? What's happening? Is open heart surgery happening right now? You're sitting here outside and we're not doing anything. And then you're upset that I asked somebody else because I should have known that that time meant that, but then this time may not be that. And when I say, hey, I'm trying to respect it and you're chilling, so let me just leave you alone. Well, you should ask. You need to get over yourself. She was better than I was at that point, because I wouldn't. And I could see the frustration, because when you feel damned if you do, damned if you don't, then you don't want to anymore. And there has to be acknowledgement on both sides. And he has a very strong personality. So he is going to be the one that's going to beat her down. She has an explosive personality too. And we've seen that. But he tends to be the more quiet, and I've been saying this, I said it about Morgan and Ben. He tends to be the more quiet. So what? The last few weeks, everybody's talking about how Lindy is crazy, or Lindy's erratic, or Lindy has the blah, 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 blah. And how's Miguel going to do it? Well, here, we're seeing Miguel, okay? Now his microphone is on. He may not be as loud, but his microphone is on. We're hearing some of the issues that he has in terms of how to communicate, or how he struggles to communicate, or how when he's really frustrated, he lets that completely supersede everything. And it didn't just supersede just one experience. It superseded the entire weekend. And I thought it was incredibly selfish for him to ruin the prom for her. Once again, in marriage, okay? We're in the car, we get into an argument, we're headed to an event. If it's an important event for my husband, if it's an important event for me, guess what? We leave that in the car, because we are not going to ruin the event for the other person because we know it's significant. That is marriage. We get back into the car and then we'll argue about it on the way home, okay? If we're not already done with it or we don't come to a resolve. But there are times that you have, even though you feel a particular way, there are times you have to get over yourself, because it's moments and times that cannot get back, and you have to rise above. You do. And I know that they're new, but he could have done better with that. He could have put it to bed. But his disposition, even when he came out, everybody's clapping for her and it's her first prom, he would not let it go. That someone who cannot move quickly or put things to bed and circle back, you don't need to be married either. So as many issues as Lindy has, which she does, she needs to be more self-aware. She needs to be more self-motivated. She needs to be more self-directed, in the sense of like, here are the issues and what do I need to really work on it? And maybe somebody needs to challenge her and push her to kind of come up with these things in conjunction to how her spouse can help her, and not just put it on her spouse. And she needs to work on her being erratic, because she keeps saying, this is not even whatever, which is like, well, maybe we shouldn't be so proud of the fact that this is not a level 10, but I get what you're saying. Miguel has some real serious issues as well. And it's not necessarily what his issues are, it's about how he communicates them or lack thereof, and how he acts. And it's just not fair. It's not fair that he acted that way, and held on to that for the entire weekend. Just like it's not fair when she blows up, and she has every right to feel the way she feels, but her expression of it is not always right. 100% wrong with Miguel. I stand on that. I stand on that. I could always see both sides, and I stand on the fact that he really ruined the weekend by the way he handled things, and also by coming in the gate with crap that had nothing to do with her or them, and he couldn't shake it off in a way that could allow them to actually take part and enjoy the weekend. What I will say is, the one thing I will give him is, when she got emotional, he was able to check in on her and find a way to step outside of himself, although brief, to see what that was about, or to try and console her. Not even fully console, but you know what I mean. And I'll give him a star for that, because I have seen couples where one person is really moved, really emotional about stuff, and you can see that they're struggling, and the other person is cold. And you can be upset. You can still feel how you feel, but that is your partner, that is your spouse. And when they're hurting and you can tell that they're in a state of just like a breakdown, that's still your person. And if you don't know how to get over yourself in that moment, there are very few moments why you wouldn't get over yourself. That's very telling of the type of person that you are, the type of spouse that you are. And if you can't do that, then you don't need to be a spouse. Because there has to be a timeout. There has to be. And it doesn't necessarily have to be because she was crying, but whatever the breakdown looks like for the other person, okay, let's do a timeout, because I care about you as a person, as a partner, more than I do how I'm feeling right now. And I have every reason to feel that way, but time out. Let's just see what this is about. And that's really important. So that's it. That's what I thought of this episode. I thought it was an excellent episode though. And I'm looking forward to seeing next week's episode. Let me know what you guys thought. As always, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. And I'll see you guys next week. Everyone have a wonderful weekend.